You're listening to the Grit to Growth podcast. Real talk with real business owners and professionals who built their freedom the hard way and now want more time, money, and impact.
Hello and welcome back to the show, everyone. My guest today lives at the intersection of performance, health, and movement. Not just for elite athletes, but for everyday people who want to move better, feel better, and live without pain. I'm Levi Tesla with Mailbox Money, and today I'm joined by Mark Roozen, also known as Coach Rozy. Mark has spent decades working as strength and conditioning coach at the highest levels, including the NFL and collegiate athletes, while also helping people of all ages move better in their daily lives. Mark, I'm really glad to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. When you say we've been doing it for decades, that means I'm an old guy. That's what that means.
I always go back to it. It's just wisdom, baby, right?
There you go. Yeah, I hope so.
Awesome. Well, Mark, why don't you start with some of your personal background, let people know who you are and kind of where you came from?
Yeah, I actually grew up in South Dakota, small little town, Gayville, South Dakota, in between Yankton and Vermilion, and played sports. Went to Northern State University. And that's where I really got involved with the strength and conditioning part of it, because I think what gave me the opportunity, I did football and track at Northern when I went there. And I think coming from a small school, the strength and conditioning part that we did in high school allowed me to go ahead and, play college football and participate at the college level. And then I was fortunate enough, I had a couple of years where I went over to Europe and played football over there for a couple of years in Cardiff, which is the capital of Wales.
Okay.
And did that for a few years. And actually I was doing that at the same time I was a strength coach at Dakota Wesleyan University, but it worked out because I played football American football, football, soccer over there, but American football was over the summer. So the Coach Kramer, who was there at the time, allowed me to go over there, but I was still strength coach at Wesleyan. Then I had a chance. I moved down to Texas. I was in Texas for 16 years as a strength coach at high school there in North Texas. Then I opened my own training facility down there for a couple of years, and found out after what it takes to burn you out after about 7 years of, putting in 20-hour days. I actually went to work for the National Strength and Conditioning Association as certification director for a couple of years, and then ended up with the Cleveland Browns from that gig. And we got released, which means we got fired from that gig. And so I actually came back to South Dakota just to visit. And when we did, there was a group of us that went out to eat. One of my guys that I graduated with, Doug Eckern is his name, worked for Avera Health Systems here in South Dakota, and said, what would you think about starting this performance program in Yankton like they do in Sioux Falls? And I said, well, I don't know if it would work just because of the population base. Yep. So how we put the strategy together was to reach out to some of the smaller towns like Gayville, where I grew up. And so that was actually 10 years ago. And in my brain, I kind of thought, well, I'll do this for a year. And then when I can get back and get my foot back in the NFL, I'll go there. And 10 years later, I'm still here in Yankton and training and doing some things. So your plans don't always work out the way that you think they're going to, but it's worked out great. So we started that first year. We had about 120 kids. And this last year, we're actually on the campus of Mount Marty University. We moved here 5 years ago. And so just recently, in the last 2 weeks, we got set up. We're actually going to take over all the strength and conditioning for Mount Marty. We'll still do Yankton. And then during the summer, we actually train about 12 different high schools for their summer program. So I send coaches out to there. And then in season, like right now, we train Yankton, Beersford, Gayville, Volland. We have some schools we train year round. But then, like I said, we pick up some schools in the summer and do their summer strength and conditioning programs. So
that's awesome.
Kind of have my fingers in different pots. And then I have other couple businesses. One is with a buddy out in California. We call it 911 Tactical Performance. We work with police, firefighters, military, and do some of those type of things. And I have another business, which is more of my speaking phase, where we go out and talk about, repetitive use injuries and do some things with like some Siemens Medical, and have a chance to do some things with different organizations through that end. But it's all related to strength and conditioning.
Very cool. So at an early age, did you just know right off the bat, sports, strength and conditioning, like you said, from being in a small town, you knew that was the goal? That's where you wanted to head?
Yeah, I mean, I coached, when I first got into it, I was, at Dakota Wesleyan, I was like, defensive line coach and I was defensive coordinator, but always the strength coach. So the background was always strength and conditioning. Even like one year I was assistant men's basketball coach at a small university. You kind of do everything, but I always had my hand in strength and conditioning. And every avenue I think, that I've gone into, people are like, oh, because for a while I actually ran a hospital wellness center down in
Oh,
Texas.
wow.
Um, but it was still related, to fitness and training. And so I think that carried over. So like right now, even at Mount Marty, we train everything from young kids. We call it our junior movement skills for life program, all the way to high school and then college athletes. But we also do adult training boot camps. So folks anywhere from 25, I think our oldest member is like 75 years old. And so we
No
do,
kidding, huh?
yeah, if I had to do over again, I don't know if I'd call them boot camps because I think that scares some folks away. But
Mhm.
yeah, so we have a pretty good group that does that. So, and that's, just general fitness and longevity, training folks for longevity. So,
Okay, so it doesn't have to be football related, or it is everyday life and
yeah,
fitness and wellness.
yeah. So we do everything. So, and then like our junior program is we take kids, like, even if you're not in athletics, we teach the 12 basic movement skills of, how to hop, skip, jump, throw. Because one of the things we talk about with parents is, if kids can feel comfortable moving, because I looked at it before, like when I was growing up, you go to church camp and there'd be kids like, hey, you want to play volleyball? They're like, no, I'm good. And the reason they don't want to is if you can't hit a ball or can't move, you feel
It's embarrassing.
uncomfortable. Yeah, it's embarrassing. So they're not going to play. I relate the story when I was with the Cleveland Browns. We had a lineman, we were going to do jump ropes to warm up. Well, he's standing there. I'm like, dude, let's grab a jump rope. Let's get going. He's like, coach, I can't, And I'm like, what? He goes, I can't jump rope. And here's a professional athlete who's making millions of dollars, and same thing, was embarrassed to not be able to jump rope in front of him. I'm like, dude, we're paying you like just jump rope. In my brain, I'm like, you're a professional athlete. And he's like, I just
Yeah,
never learned how to jump rope. So, we took the
that's
jump rope and
crazy.
cut it off and tied washers to the end so he could stand there and get his movement prep in. But then we actually worked him where he could jump rope. But here's a professional athlete, somebody in their 20s and can't jump rope, and they're embarrassed to be able to do that. So what I tell parents is, if we can teach your kids how to move, they're going to be more active through life. So when they're in their 20s and 30s, they're not going to just sit around, and they're going to feel more comfortable playing pickleball or whatever activity they choose to do. And that's what we talk about. Most of the kids we work with aren't going to go play college ball. And so it's like, can we teach you some things to be, have that longevity of health, fitness, and wellness?
That's great. Yeah, that's the I gotta admit, for myself personally, yeah, trying new things and the embarrassment factor is often what keeps me from doing it. But
Yeah.
I think as I've gotten older, I think I've been better at putting that aside and just learning that new things are always great to be trying.
Yeah. And I talk to kids all the time. I'm like, did you know when you were a baby, you couldn't walk at first? You know what I mean? Like, there's a process to doing. So that's when we talk with our at every level, we talk about pattern and then progression and then laying a plan out. So it's like, well, my pattern of movement, if you've never done it before, you have to learn how to do that pattern. And so what we're trying to do is say, if I can teach pattern of movements to a third, fourth grader, if they want to do sports, they'll have more success. But even if not, they're going to have health and fitness success, down the road. So that's one of the programs we put together
That's a
when we
great
were here.
philosophy.
So yeah.
Coach Rosie, I kind of want to go revisit. You talked about playing ball in Europe and everything. How established was American football in Europe at that time?
Well, like I said, I'm a kind of an old timer. So, what we actually, when we went over, we were player coaches. So, some people, because we're old, but our head coach and quarterback was Steve Pazarkowitz. I don't know if people remember that name. He played at Missouri, was a first round draft pick for the St. Louis Cardinals when they were the St. Louis Cardinals. And so he was our head coach. So at the time, you could only have 6 Americans on your team. And because they were trying to develop the game of American football over there. And so we did a lot of things, going out to schools, speaking and building up the program. So we had a lot of guys that were in rugby that came over to play American football because it was just kind of the base beginning. And so they were doing a lot of marketing, a lot of, like I said, going into schools to talk about what is football and how do you set it up and watching games and everything else. So we did, besides playing and coaching, we did a lot of the helped with marketing things to go around to organizations and schools to talk about American football at the time. So that was back in the 80s.
So that was really the kind of foundation. Was that through like the NFL putting on that program, or what?
No,
Who was
it wasn't
kind
at
of?
the time. So like for us, we're actually sponsored by Cardiff windows, it was called. So we were kind of like walking billboards. So our jerseys had like Cardiff windows, which was
Okay.
the team sponsor, like how they have it now, where the stadium's named after it. Well, the players were named after it. So we had like different sponsors on the jerseys is how they set it up to help pay for it. And I mean, it was a great experience. Got you meet some guys that I'm still friends with and still talk with over there. So it was a good experience. And I kind of helped to, I think, launch American football over there. And now you see it where, NFL's going over there on a regular basis and other places too, to kind of promote the game.
Yeah, been growing it exponentially. I mean, I remember they started with just one London game, and now they're up to like 3 or 4 London games. They're in
Yeah.
Madrid, they're in Germany. It's so you were really part of the foundation of all that. That's really cool.
We'll say yes, but I'm not sure if that was the truth, but we'll say yes. It's so long
I
ago
think
that
so.
we'll say yes, it's true because it'll be hard to find the true facts. So
That's cool. Going into what your time, you said the Cleveland Browns. Was there other organizations that you were part of, just the Browns?
well, I had a chance to do some summer stuff with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we did like I went in during the summer for their training camps. That's actually when I own a facility. So I kind of dabbled my foot. And then how I got involved with a lot of that is when I was in Texas, um, a guy used to do Devin Bonick was his name. We used to do sports training camps. So he'd do football camps with like he'd do the Emmett Smith football camp, the Neil Smith in Kansas City, Rich Gannon, Cadre Ishmael, like up in Minnesota when Cadre played. So, and then it was Rich Gannon's camp. So he'd go to different locations and bring coaches with him to put camps on. And that's how I had the chance to meet some of the guys, from all different levels in coaching. So, we're actually at TCU doing a camp. We're doing the Emmett Smith football camp, and I had a chance to meet some coaches and develop some relationships and friendships. And it's kind of I always tell young guys that's like want because as a strength coach, everybody wants to get to I want to be in the Major League Baseball or NFL or whatever it is. And I'm like, who help get you in the door, and what keeps you there. But I'm like, if you don't have those contacts and network, it's you can want all you want, but it's the people because I have to know I can work with you at those different levels. Like when I went to the Cleveland Browns, and I relate this story all the time. I said I thought I had the knowledge how to do that, but I didn't know if I could translate that over to be at the players. And I relate the story. The first 2 weeks, I was standing in the weight room. I'd ask guys like, "Hey, you need a spot?" And they're like, "Yeah, no, I'm good." And then they'd turn and go, "Hey, can you spot me to another guy?" And I'm like, and I went to Kent Johnson, who
You
was
were the
strength.
outsider.
Yeah, and I just said, Coach, I don't think I'm doing anything here. He goes, just hang out, you're good, be cool. And a couple weeks later, I remember as Josh Cribbs came in, and he was looking for Kent, and he was looking for Rick Lyle, who was the first assistant, and was like, "Hey, are those guys?" I said, "Well, they're not around. What do you need?" And I had a chance to help him. And then the next day, a couple other guys came in and said, "Hey, Cribbsy said we're supposed to come talk to you to do some stuff." And then it kind of started to roll from there. But you go in there going, can I relate to some guys, and can they relate to me? So just having the knowledge sometimes isn't the key. It's having the ability to translate that knowledge and share it with other people and build those. Again, building relationships is what I tell all my assistant coaches and our interns that come to our program. It's like, can you build relationships with the third grader or the high school athlete or college athlete or elite athlete? Can you build a relationship? Because what they don't really care.
Yep.
It's like, can you take what you know? I relate the story when I was with Jacksonville, because I was a drill guy. Like I had notebooks full of like agility drills and all these things. If you remember the running back Fred Smith,
Yeah.
uh, I was showing him some stuff. He goes, "God, coach, you have a lot of drills." And I was like, kind of like, "Yes, I do."
Yes, I
And
do.
he's like, "I don't know if any of them are helping me get better." And that was like, I was like, "Whoa," kind of a punch.
Shot right at you,
Yeah.
huh?
And I was like, more's not always better. Better's better. Right. So,
Mhm.
um, it kind of just woke me up to go, I don't need 1,000 drills. I need 10 drills that are really good drills that can help somebody to become a better foot. And that's that progression, right? Pattern of movement. Then can I do a progression to help them get better? And if not, you're going to lose. I don't care if it's an eighth grader or a professional, you're going to lose them pretty quick.
Yep.
Is because they're like, this isn't helping me get any better. Like I'm not running faster, jumping higher. I'm not getting stronger. Like I'm kind of wasting my time here. And then they lose interest. And so it's developing those relationships again with every level to be able to help them achieve what they want to achieve.
Along those lines, then the difference between working with professional athletes and then your younger or not as established athletes. What's something that reigns true for training both of them, and then what's kind of some of the things that you see the differences in professionals?
Yeah, it's just I think that the similarity is again, everybody just wants to take their level and move to the next like try to move to a higher level to get better at what they're able to do. And what we're seeing now is they want to do it with the least amount of time as possible. It's not like I'm going to put in 10 hours if I can do this in an hour. And I think that's across the board. Everybody wants to do. The different level I see is, it's just there's some guys that God said, you're going to have coordinate, like you're just put together different, they're different monsters. So like I could be working with high school kids and be like, you want to squat, make sure your head's at this position, your arms are in this position. And we have to do that 100 times where, working with a professional, I'm like, hey, you want to make sure you keep your head up and your arms in this position. Then I'd be like, you just did what I said. They're like, well, yeah. You know what I mean? Their motor development is that, yeah. So they're able to do some things. And then there are some athletes I saw that would have an injury. And I'm like, dude, you shouldn't be able to do that. Like with they're like, well, like, how are you doing that? They're like, well, I just do it. Where, you know, underdeveloped athletes would be in a position and it's like that would be a game like stop for them. Like they wouldn't be able to continue doing the activity. Where at that higher level, they're just built different in their balance and coordination and their muscle. Like they can almost cover up those injuries. Which then sometimes I think leads to other bigger injuries, So we talk to them about that too, say, well, we have to correct this before something bad really does happen. Where,
Protecting them from
yeah,
themselves.
yeah, really and that's the best way to say it is because our young kids can't even get to that next level to get hurt where the athlete's like, well, my hamstring's tweaked a little bit and it's because your hip's off a little bit. They're going to push through that, but all of a sudden now, it's a knee issue or it's an ankle issue because their hip was off, but they were able to perform through that. But there's still an issue there. But there's like I said, God just said you're going to be a football player or a basketball player, and the stuff that they can do, you just look at and go, man, that's just a different level human being of what they're able to do. So
kind of speaking along the lines of the pain and stuff. You co-founded Live Pain Free. Can you kind of walk me through what's going on in that company and
yeah,
how it came about?
yeah. So how that happened, I was actually with the Cleveland Browns, and one of my best friends is a sonographer, right? Does cardiac sonography, like takes, like scans of the heart. Well, he lived in Yankton and I was in Cleveland. He called me and said, dude, my shoulder hurts so bad. Like I can hardly scan anymore. And we had played football together. And he's like, I don't know what I'm like. I'm going to have to retire. And instead of being a sonographer, I'm going to have to go drive a truck. Cause he's like, I'm in Yankton, South Dakota. There's not a whole lot of options if I'm not a sonographer. And we started talking. I said, well, you're doing what, you're still trained like a football player and not a sonographer. And you're doing that repetitive use injury. So I did some things to help correct his shoulder issues and back issues. Well, he happened to be on a committee that they would write the exams for sonographers. So he had a couple times a year, he'd fly to Washington, D.C. to meet with the group. Well, all of them would sit around the table at dinner and go, like my neck hurts and my wrist hurts and my shoulder's killing me and my hips are killing me. And they're like, hey, how's your shoulder? And he's like, I don't have any shoulder issues anymore. And they're like, what? He goes, well, a buddy of mine's a strength coach. And so they literally reached out to me and said, would you do a podcast? And
That's
so
awesome.
I did a podcast for one of the organizations, one of the SDMS, which is sonographers. I mean, they have all these acronyms for all these organizations. So we did one and there's like 600 people from all across the United States and Canada and some other places. Well, it just kind of took off where people started to reach out. And then we got to, ask, would you start writing some articles? And that's how, when I talk about like going to do work for Siemens and stuff, and some different organizations like the Vein Clinic in Texas, it just kind of opened up a door where, just the overuse injuries that people have. And it was just like, if you do these things, because that a lot of them, like what we do on a day-to-day basis, it's like, well, this is just an easy stretch. They're like, I've never seen that before. Not knocking them, but they don't have any athletic background. They haven't maybe been around sports. Some of them have, and then like my buddy who was around sports, he was still training like a football player, so it was like he could still bench 400 pounds, but when he held the probe and had to hold it there for 20 minutes and do 8 of those a day, he's like, dude, my shoulder and my neck. And I'm just like, you're just in bad positioning. And so we did some things from ergonomic standpoint and function. Like, I'm like, your body's your machine, right? Like if you don't take care of your body, you can have the best chair and the best computer monitor and adjust all those things. But if your body's broken down, you're still broken down. So that's where it took off from. And it kind of just, took off. So like we even had a chance where we got to go speak, and we were keynote speakers at the Australian Sonographers Association, and been in Canada, and so had an opportunity to go different places based on just that kind of profession, because a lot of people don't, have access to that, or don't know what should I do if my shoulder's killing me. And like 9 out of 10 sonographers scan in pain, and out of those 50% have to retire from the profession before they want to, because they're in so much pain and they just can't scan anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy how that relationship blossomed into
Yeah.
something quite that large.
Yeah, that
Um,
I didn't think about.
yeah, no kidding. How about you touched on it a little bit. Was it the 911 tactical performance? What are you guys all doing there?
So when I was with the NSCA, so I was the certification director for the National Strength and Conditioning Association. When I was there, we actually started the TSAC certification, Tactical Strength and Conditioning Coaches certification. So at the
Uh-huh.
time, we'd go out and do different talks and presentations. And a good friend of mine who's been like the TSAC Strength Coach of the Year, um, he actually worked for the city of Sacramento, and was their strength coach and did the things for the fire department, police department. And it got set up through him that we'd go speak at different, facilities and locations for like Cal Fire, um, Post, which is a specialized training thing for California police departments. We'd do some things on military bases. And so it just kind of same thing grew from doing a couple things and have a contact, and you'd go in and do a presentation or a talk. And then all of a sudden, Orange City would say like, "Hey, could you come and do this to us?" And then San Diego, and then we were doing it for the police, and then fire took over. So like, and I've done some stuff for like Sioux Falls Fire Department, and just
Uh-huh.
because you meet some people and they're like, "Hey, we heard you did this. Would you be willing to come talk and help our fire department?" And so it kind of grew from that, of reaching out to folks, and folks starting to reach out to us then too, to go, "We hear you do these 40-hour courses." Because the same thing, guys are, police officers, it's like, are pretty banged up. Um, like we always say, when you're 20 years old, you're going to jump the fence and go after the guy. When you're 30, you're going to call on the radio. And when you're 40, you want to stay in the car and you're not even going to get out and go after him. You're going to be, just because your bodies get so beat up from the
Yeah,
tear,
absolutely.
and the repetitive use injuries and the problems that they have. You're carrying a 50-pound vest, and all the injuries they have. And like with fire, um, lot of the firefighters, the health issues that they have to deal with after they retire, even, with just joint problems and cancer, and nutrition. Like nutrition's bad for a lot of those guys, because
Hmm.
your overnight shift, you're working shift work, and
You're doing what's available, not
yeah,
what's best, right? Yeah,
yeah,
what's
exactly.
convenient, and when it's convenient, it's usually not the best for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we got
Interesting.
it. That's how we got involved with the 911 part of it, through a good friend of mine, John Hoffman, and Rob Rogers helped put that together too. And Rob right now, like, his works for the Border Patrol. He's a strength coach for Border Patrol, but he was at like UCLA and Baylor, and he was at the NSCA when I was there too, as the head strength coach there. So, and again, it's those contacts and people you meet along the way. Um,
Yeah,
which I always tell my young coaches, like, that's one of the most important things, is the contacts you meet, and find the people that you can relate with, because those are the people that you're going to be either doing projects with, or maybe working with, or help you get to your next level of what you want to be able to get to.
that's a great piece of advice
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Well, Coach Rosie, where's the best place that people could find you, learn more about all the work that you're doing? If you guys have any camps or anything, where would you send them to?
Yeah, normally I tell them just go to coachrozy.com. It's coach and then ROZY. Some people are like ROSY and everything, but it's ROZY. That's our website. We're on Instagram and some other stuff. But if you go to our website, my contact information is there. We try to update that with like the different like summer camps that are coming up. Like I say, well, you have some different things coming up about our 10th year anniversary, and then us taking over. So we're actually going to move from the facility we're in right now, is about 3,000 square feet. We're moving next door to about 8,000 square feet. Um,
That's exciting.
yeah, so that'll happen in May of 2026. So we just got everything
Good.
set up for that. So, like I said, we'll take over all the sports teams at Mount Marty University. So they're letting me hire a couple other strength coaches. So we'll actually, for NAI, we're pretty fired up about the facility we'll have and the number of coaches. And the reason it allows us to do that is because we are working with like Yankton High School, Mount Marty, 'Cause some of the other schools in the area, so it frees up so I can hire, you as an example and go, where you're going to work part-time with the high school kids, and then you're going to work with a couple of college teams too. So as a strength coach, it's like you're working with a high school team and college teams. So it gives good opportunity for some young, strength coaches to learn the different levels of what they're doing too. So it's been a great opportunity. So we're excited about being able to move to that facility.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm very happy and excited for you guys.
Yeah, I
That'll be
appreciate that.
great when you get in there.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, really appreciate you bringing the clarity and practicality to space that a lot of people can feel overwhelmed in. So thank you for sharing your story, and I hope those listening that they can take some good lessons from here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Know someone with serious grit and a great growth story? Send them our way at grittogrowthpodcast.com/guest.